License agreement, including NDA and intellectual copyright protection. This license agreement, the agreement, is entered into as of date by and between MB589 and MG589 ecosystem, the licensor, and name entity, the licensee, an independent representative within the Super 33 and beyond framework. Both parties agree to the following terms. 1. Grant of license. 1.1. The licensor grants the licensee a non-exclusive, non-transferable license to use the intellectual property, IP, brand assets, and associated proprietary materials of MB589 and MG589, the licensed materials, strictly in accordance with the terms of this agreement. 1.2. The licensee may use the licensed materials solely for the purpose of promoting, developing, and expanding the MB589 and MG589 ecosystem as an independent representative. 2. Ownership of intellectual property. 2.1. The licensor retains all rights, title, and interest in and to the licensed materials, including all associated copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets, and other intellectual property rights. 2.2. The licensee agrees not to claim ownership of or any rights to the licensed materials outside the scope of this agreement. 3. Confidentiality and Non-Disclosure Agreement, NDA. 3.1. The licensee acknowledges that during the term of this agreement, they may receive or have access to confidential information of the licensor, including but not limited to business strategies, technical designs, marketing plans, and unpublished materials, the confidential information. 3.2. The licensee agrees: A. To maintain the confidentiality of the confidential information and not disclose it to any third party without prior written consent from the licensor. B. To use the confidential information only for the purposes outlined in this agreement. C. To take all necessary steps to prevent unauthorized access, disclosure, or use of the confidential information. 3.3. This confidentiality obligation will survive the termination or expiration of this agreement. 4. Content creation and adherence to law. 4.1. The licensee agrees to comply with all applicable laws and regulations of their jurisdiction regarding content creation for MB589 and MG589. 4.2. If creating content or art inspired by a copyrighted artist, A. The licensee must ensure that the content complies with copyright laws and does not infringe on the intellectual property rights of the artist. B. The licensee shall not affiliate MB589 or MG589 with any copyrighted artist, their name, brand, or work without prior written consent from the artist or their management company. 4.3. Any content or art found to be in violation of this clause must be immediately removed or corrected at the licensee's expense. 5. Restrictions on use. 5.1. The licensee shall not: A. Modify, reverse engineer, decompile, or disassemble any part of the licensed materials. B. Use the licensed materials for any unlawful purpose or in a manner that damages the reputation of MB589 or MG589. C. Transfer, assign, or sublicense the rights granted under this agreement without prior written consent from the licensor. 5.2. Upon leaving the MB589 and MG589 ecosystem, the licensee agrees: A. Not to use or replicate the knowledge, strategies, or proprietary information acquired during their tenure to create a similar project. B. Not to use the names, keywords, or branding associated with MB589 or MG589 in any new project or initiative. 6. Intellectual property protection. 6.1. The licensee agrees to: A. Respect and uphold the intellectual property rights of the licensor. B. Notify the licensor immediately if they become aware of any infringement or unauthorized use of the licensed materials. 6.2. Any derivative works or modifications made by the licensee using the licensed materials shall automatically become the property of the licensor, and the licensee assigns all rights, title, and interest in such derivative works to the licensor. 7. Term and termination. 7.1. This agreement shall remain in effect until terminated by either party with 30 days written notice. 7.2. The licensor may terminate this agreement immediately if the licensee breaches any of its terms. 7.3. Upon termination, the licensee must: A. Cease all use of the licensed materials. B. Return or destroy all copies of the licensed materials and any confidential information in their possession. 8. Indemnification. The licensee agrees to indemnify and hold harmless the licensor from any claims, damages, or liabilities arising out of the licensee's use of the licensed materials in violation of this agreement. 9. Governing law and dispute resolution. 9.1. This agreement shall be governed by and construed in accordance with the laws of jurisdiction. 9.2. Any disputes arising under this agreement shall be resolved through arbitration in location, and the decision of the arbitrators shall be binding on both parties. 10. Miscellaneous. 10.1. This agreement constitutes the entire understanding between the parties regarding its subject matter and supersedes all prior agreements. 10.2. Any amendments to this agreement must be made in writing and signed by both parties. 10.3. If any provision of this agreement is found to be unenforceable, the remaining provisions shall remain in effect. By signing below, the parties agree to the terms and conditions outlined above. Licensor. Name. Representative of MB589 MG589 ecosystem. Signature. Gechidatandu. Date. Licensee. Name. Licensee name, entity. Signature. Date.